Hi, everybody. So here's a video about to kick off chapter 4. I want to do this right before Thanksgiving break, and then when we come back from break, hopefully we have good handle on this idea right here. It says on the sheet that you're looking at, there are 7 ways to classify triangles. You need to know them all by memory. Some of them you probably already know. We can classify triangles by both their angles and the side and their sides. So you can classify them by just their angles, just their sides, and sometimes you'll be asked to do both if you can. In fact, we'll have a worksheet on or practice questions on Monday or Tuesday that have you practice that. So looking at the screen, number one, acute triangles, all angles are less than 90 degrees, all three of them. Now, the second video talks about why all the angles of a triangle have to add up to 180 degrees as well. So that's an equal part of this, but this course teaches this first, and then all the angles add up to 180. Obtuse triangle has just one angle greater than 90. I'll get some students to say, okay, acute's all angles less than 90. So obtuse is all angles are greater than 90. And in fact, you can only have one angle of a triangle that is bigger than 90. The other two have to be smaller than 90. So that's why obtuse just says one. Equilateral triangle are all angles are the same. And that's our definition in the first section. If you think about it, though, if they all add up to 180 and they're all the same, 180 divided by 3 would be 60. And so that's why in parentheses, I put 60 degrees. Right triangle, here's one that I bet you knew before you came in here or watched this video. Right triangle, one angle measures exactly 90 degrees. Okay, now we're on to classifying by their sides, and there's 3 different ways to do that. Number 5 is an equilateral triangle. All sides have the same measure, and if you notice, this is the same picture we saw with equiangular. In fact, it is true that if it's equilateral, it would have to be equiangular, and if it's equiangular, it would have to be equilateral. Number 6 is one that we spend quite some time with, and that's called an isosceles triangle. And that's 2 sides have the same measure. You can actually find some textbooks that say isosceles triangle condition is met if at least 2 sides have the same measure. Doesn't come into play in our curriculum, so we're just going to say that 2 sides have the same measure. And if you look at this picture, I have tick marks for the 2 sides that are congruent. And if you look at the angles opposite those, there's arc marks there. And it is true that if 2 sides are congruent, then their opposite angles have to be congruent. You don't have to know that right now. I just need you to know what an isosceles triangle is. 2 sides have the same measure. And here's the last one. This one's typically the most challenging for geometry students to remember. A scalene triangle. No sides have the same length. That's why you see a different number of tick marks for each of those sides. That's called a scalene triangle. So now you could have combinations of these, right? It is possible, for example, you could have a right triangle that has 2 sides the same length. So you would say that's a right isosceles triangle or isosceles right triangle. Either way is satisfactory. And those actually come into play a little bit later in our curriculum. So sides, angles, or a combination of both. Thanks for listening.